Oh, we also don't have the spring and the nut.
Hi there, and welcome back to the workshop. This time we're taking a close look at the Bendix drive and the crucial role it plays in getting anywhere by Lagonda, or indeed any other car. Keen watchers of the channel remember very early on when we had Celia up on the ramp.
It's off there. There's the solenoid. It goes into there. It's missing. And it's missing. That's a good telltale sign, Pete, because you get us in the hole and
The missing bit was the Bendix drive, and I realised I'd come across a mysterious cog that looked just like it at my parents' house. And this is probably as good a time as any to explain exactly what a Bendix drive is. Essentially, it's a very ingenious connecting rod that connects the starter motor to the engine. The whole point of an engine is to turn the crankshaft because that's the thing that's attached to the wheels. So, to start the engine, you have to turn the crankshaft. Back in the day, there was a starting handle specifically for turning over the crankshaft. These were really hard work, which perhaps explains why it was that electric starters were invented surprisingly early on. Key to all this was the Bendix drive, because that's the thing that turns the ring gear on the outside of the flywheel. Modern versions of the Bendix drive are still in use today, over a century later. The Bendix drive was patented in 1914 by Vincent Bendix. Bendix was an entrepreneur and by all accounts a maker and loser of personal fortunes, known for lavish spending and sometimes poor financial decisions. First and foremost, though, he was an inventor, and he was very, very good at that. In quick succession, he developed the Bendix drive and secured the rights to an innovative braking system invented by Henri Perrault, pictured here. It's a mark of how quickly technology was developing at the time that just a few years later in the 1920s, the company was renamed Bendix Aviation and started making aeroplane parts. In 1931, he established the Bendix Trophy. This was a cross-America, point-to-point race, usually running from Burbank, California to Cleveland, Ohio. Famous participants included Amelia Earhart, who finished 5th in 1935. So it was all the more ironic that Bendix apparently hated to fly. Vincent Bendix was born in Moline, Illinois, in 1881, the eldest son of a Swedish clergyman. Moline was a centre for the manufacture of agricultural equipment, largely because it was home to a Swedish immigrant community who had brought with them traditions of craftsmanship and engineering excellence, all of which seemed to have stood a young Bendix in good stead. Bendix moved to New York at the age of 16 and appears to have assembled his engineering knowledge from night school and a range of jobs, learning about electricity whilst working the maintenance department of a local hospital, for instance. Importantly, though, in 1901 he started working for Glenn Curtiss, who would also go on to build aeroplanes, but who was at the time building motorcycles. And it was here that Bendix learned about engines, mechanical engineering, and most importantly, how to apply this knowledge. Bendix started his first business, the Bendix Corporation, in 1907, with the launch of the Bendix motor buggy. The company was made bankrupt a year or so later, but not until it had made 7,000 buggies. This is often described as a failure, but for the time, manufacturing 7,000 of anything that complicated in a year seems like a lot to me. His was not the first mechanical starter, but it was the best, and by the 1920s his starter had been fitted to over 1.5 million vehicles. Since I have a copy of the original manual, I thought I'd let Lagonda explain exactly how a Bendix drive actually works. The starter is carried in a cradle mounted on the near side frame member and drives the Bendix gear through a flexible shaft. The two greasers on the starter should be given a half turn occasionally. The Bendix starting gear is mounted in an eccentric housing in the flywheel guard casting, the forward end running in an oilless bush carried in the near side rear engine arm. See sectional drawing above. The pinion, which engages with the flywheel teeth, is mounted on a quick thread and should not be oiled, but a little paraffin brushed on the thread occasionally is desirable. When the starter motor is revolved, the action draws the pinion along the thread and so engages with the flywheel teeth. And as soon as the engine is running, the action is to return the pinion to its neutral position. The coil spring takes the shock of the drive. Unfortunately for us, ours had a few bits missing. The spring was missing entirely, as was half of the dog clutch. The weight was missing from the pinion, and as for the teeth, well, Wurzel Gummidge would have been proud of those. It's my suspicion that some or all of those missing bits exited through that mysterious hole in the flywheel housing. Happily, a friend of Paul's was able to weld back on one of the missing bits, and a friend of Andrew's was able to replace the rest. All in all, when you lay it out, a starter motor, curious loo brush thingy that joins the starter and the Bendix, and the Bendix drive, the whole thing is about a yard long. There's something exuberant about the sheer enormity of it all. So it's a huge thank you to you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please take a second to like and subscribe. It's free and it really helps.